Hey, oh, hey. Yeah. Oh,
Not
good afternoon.
49
Good
day in the
afternoon.
weekend. Good
Yeah.
afternoon.
49. 49. Boy, make me
Leading us into
drink.
Trauma Tuesday.
Yeah.
Okay, I
Trauma
know.
Tuesday. Welcome to
Triggers.
Trauma Tuesday.
It was a trigger. It is a
Uh,
trigger. I know every time I open up a can, like at group, I'll go trigger. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I forgot this is
welcome
your
to
show.
Trauma Tuesday here at 1950 South Shepherd, and I have a special guest. Would you like to introduce yourself, ma'am?
My name is Natalie Harjo. I am a grief and trauma specialist and a facilitator for White Bison. And I also have a background in behavioral health, and I work for the Southern Plains Tribal Health Board and the Tribal Epidemiology Center. And I am a peer recovery support specialist in the state of Oklahoma.
Stongo Oskenyecha.
Stongonades. Sinda.
Atiska. Atiska.
I'm so used to saying all of that stuff.
Well,
I'm really not used to saying it, but I have to every now and then. So
here we are on Tuesday. We had a successful fundraiser today. We appreciate everybody that came out and bought some glizzies, and bought some burnt uh hot links. And it was funny because our chili was warming up the whole time and didn't get ready until everybody came and bought everything up. So, but we ended up in the positive. And then we still have our raffle going on. A size 9 tea dress,
the
and
waffle.
a we have a shawl that we will be waffling Friday. So, if you haven't gotten any tickets yet, they're $5 for a chance. And the first winner gets a choice, and then the second winner gets whatever's left over. So we appreciate the support. So once again, Trauma Tuesday. Is there a certain topic that you had in mind?
I can go all over the gamut with trauma, but we were talking about a little bit earlier in a conversation that we had about validation
Mm-hmm.
and how a lot of times we say we don't need validation, but sometimes we do. And it's not because we're begging for it, but sometimes I just need people to acknowledge that I've done something right. And so I was talking about how we went through a drive-through one day, and the same lady is always there when we go through there. And we don't go through there very often, but whenever we do, she's always very pleasant, and she's always working, and she's always very efficient and asking if we have everything. And so, one day we went through there and I said, you're here every time we come here. You must work a lot. And she was like, "Oh, I do. I like practically live here." And she just immediately was smiling. And and as we went away, "You have a wonderful day, and do you have everything you need?" And a little bit of that goes a long way. And not that it was self-serving, but she needed that little bit of validation because maybe that day she got hollered at by her boss, or maybe she was running late that day and needed validation. And sometimes we need it. But in trauma, it's a physiological response a lot of times to, we think it's got to be something bad. It's got to be like death or, it's got to be something major. And sometimes,
Despair.
yes, and it's not always. Sometimes triggers happen from tiny, small things like, um, I don't like a dark room. And that it's not because I'm scared of the dark, because, my ceremonies happen at nighttime. But immediately, like in silence at nighttime, I can't handle silence. Silence is like the quietest, or I mean, it's like the loudest noise ever to me. And the reason being is because I have past traumas where I was abused, and different things that happen in the night when those things, happen. And so sometimes we don't even know what we don't know. And those little bitty triggers, can trigger trauma responses. Like, I don't like to be tickled, like my feet. I don't like my feet to be tickled because my uncles growing up in a big old, as with my grandparents, my uncles just teased me all the time, but they knew I was ticklish and they would tickle me until I would cry. And I hated it because my feet are so sensitive, see? And then even that is funny to you. It invoked some type of joy. The same thing it did for them. They thought it was funny.
I just think it's fun.
No, you start
Ow.
And don't laugh. Yeah. But and they thought it was hilarious that they would tickle me till I cried. So now anything that comes near my feet, like bam, it's an immediate jerk reaction, right? And so like trauma comes in all forms is what I'm saying. It's not because not always from death. It's not always from loss, you know. Sometimes we have trauma based on the first thing that my son learned from hot, because we were teaching him the language. If I said something was hot, I would say, "Hey ye," like don't touch it, right? That means hot in our language. And so whenever he would go, because I was always in the kitchen, he'd always be trying to touch the stove. And I would, the first time he said it hurt, he went like that and he pulled his hands back. And I said, "Hey ye." And so when he would go to it, I would say, "Hey ye," and he would go, "Hey ye." Like he knew that it was going to burn him. So sometimes that trauma teaches us lessons too. It kept him from getting burned because he knew in the past he had touched that hot oven and it was uncomfortable. It didn't give him third-degree burns. He just knew that it was hot to the touch, it was uncomfortable, it was dangerous, and that's his normal response now. Is anytime something hot, you like, kind of like when they bring your yeah, when they bring your plate to you at the Mexican restaurant and they say it's hot, don't touch it, but we got to go feel it for ourselves, right? Every time. Sometimes we don't learn from our traumas. What are some traumas that you can think of that maybe people would think that you would have, or maybe they can recognize in themselves?
I would have to say, I don't like to hear the word no. I used to think that I finessed everybody enough and that I was good enough to everybody. That when it comes time for me to be a self seeker and want something, they have something that I need. I see that as a trauma response because, coming from the life that I did, the school of hard knocks, you know, uh, kindness was took as a weakness. And it just kind of seemed like that built up this, kind of like I don't want to go that route because I feel worse whenever I take the route where I have to take something from you or I got to bully you or I got to get over on you or uh I got to a place and I would have to say it was after my son died, that I wanted to show appreciation for everybody that was, but I also had an addiction. I also had an addiction that ran, it was the center of my world. And so, I would have to say just living the life that I lived, uh, it didn't hit me until I got sober, and I was at Dream Recovery in Costa Mesa. And I asked somebody a question. It was my homegirl Jen. I asked Jen, and I believe we're in Connie's office, and she told me no. And it
The audacity.
yeah, I was like, what? Like you gonna tell me no? And I want to say we went into this conversation about why does that bother you so much? And I
You
never
saw that
really
trigger.
thought about that.
Hmm.
I never really thought about that. Because I was so used to being told yes all the time. Because I felt like I was a simple alcoholic. I was a simple addict. I didn't want a lot. But whatever I want, just give me that and I'm happy. Treat me however you want to treat me. Do whatever you got to do. I don't care. Call me what you want to call me. Just give me, my little whatever it was that I want.
Like, just give me this.
Yeah, just give me
Yeah.
this and I will be okay. I will, kick me around if you got it. And that's I don't know, I would just have to say that's where my addiction left me. I didn't feel like I was worthy. You a lot of shame and guilt go along with addiction.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I felt like I never wanted much. I was willing to go like above and beyond for anybody and anything that I did. If you asked me to do something, I tried my best to be there and do it. But if it meant that I had to be high while I did it, then just give me that.
Well, and
You know what
even
I mean?
and even at that, like for me, I know like in my addiction, there were so many of those traumas that kind of pushed me into an addiction too. But like in that feeling of reciprocity, and you build resentment if somebody doesn't do the same thing
Yeah,
that you would do for them, right? And then you're like, well, I did all this for you. Why can't you do this for me?
yeah.
And then that builds resentment. And then that triggers all of this. Well, I need to go numb this pain. Right. And that's also a lesson in self awareness as to what your triggers are. And sometimes it's just being honest with yourself. I know, like, even growing up in junior high, I used to run. I used to be in pretty decent shape and I hated running, but I was good at it. And I also went to school at a time when you didn't have a choice. You took PE, whether you liked it or not. And so um, so in the early 90s, I had a track coach and I was not a sprinter, but I was really good at distance. I had, decent stamina and everything. But like I would talk myself out of it all the time. Like, oh, I can't do this today. I don't want to do this today, and usually if you tell yourself something that you can't do something, you're going to be right most of the time. Like I've already defeated myself, right? And so, but my coach knew how to get to me and he knew me way back then before I even knew myself. And Coach Gallagher, we called him Coach G, he would say, yeah, you're right, Harjo, you can't do it. And I was like, what do you mean, you're my coach, why would you tell me I can't do it? And he's like, yeah, you're right, you can't do this, it's too hard for you. And it made me so mad. Like I was motivated by anger at that point, but you know what he did, his job, he motivated me because he knew how to get to me, to where he triggered a trauma in me that I didn't even realize I had. I didn't even realize that it made me mad that I couldn't. They told me to do something, but then the more I looked at it, and more grown I got, or lack thereof growing, because I was 5'2" my entire life practically. It seems like my adult life too. I've not grown any since I think I was in the 7th grade whenever I stopped growing. So, anyway, but that stated, I didn't get a whole lot of like they would always say, "You're too little, you can't do this," and they've been doing that my whole life. You're too little, you can't do that. And so I did take offense to that. That was a trauma that I would, and a trigger for me. And so the fact that he even told me, "Yeah, you can't do that. You can't do this," and and even in my heart of hearts, I knew he was joking, but I was still like appalled, and that made me want to do it after that and prove him wrong. Thus, kind of carried that into one of the things that I carried baggage wise into relationships, and just not with not with everybody, but just anybody that you run into, right? Like if they tell me I'm wrong or tell me something that I know I'm right, I would prove them wrong, and
Do you want to be right or do
that's
you want to be happy?
exactly where I would talk to you that one day. And do you want to be right or do you want to be happy? And that's not something I ever really thought about, because for so long I just needed you to be educated, and I felt like that I was the standard for that in my own head, right? Like I thought
I'm
I knew
very
it.
uneducated.
You couldn't tell me nothing back then. And so anyway, but yeah, physiological, psychological response, it triggered some distress. It would make me overwhelmed. And then I would tell, and then if I couldn't do it, improve, and he was right that I couldn't do something. Like I used to high jump. I'm 5'2", and I took high jumping because they told me I was little and I couldn't do it. But you know what? I did it. But I wasn't great at it, but I medaled every now and then. And so anyway, but it wasn't life threatening. Not that I was overwhelmed, but not just stressed by any means, but it was I had to be right, and I had to prove to them that I'm not too little to do this. Um, you know, basketball too. I played 6-on-6. Yeah, 6-on-6.
School.
And listen, I was a really good guard. I could jump. I could, touch the backboard. I could do all those things, but I wasn't the greatest shooter, so I didn't get to play offense, right? And so there was a lot of things, but it did have a lasting negative effect on me, on my mental, physical, and social well-being, because people would tease me all the time, and I didn't like to be teased either. So just little daily traumas, right? These are everyday things. And a lot of times we invalidate what we feel every day because we're like, I should be tough enough to deal with this. Or I don't want people to see how sensitive I am whenever, I see a lot of people that sit on this couch and they do this.
To do what?
They do this. They cover their belly up with these. And there's something there that tells me that they're traumatized or triggered by, they don't want their bellies to be shown, right?
I love my boat.
Yeah, I had to make peace with mine, so I don't care. But it's a trauma for a lot of people, and so you can kind of see it and read it in some people. So,
Well, do we have any comments? Drew, good afternoon, little brother. And then Laura, and then Rain. How you gonna be in here, Rain, and just walk out and then
said it keeps going mute. Are we good? Dang, and it blocking it out. Was blocking it out.
So who else commented? Good afternoon, Leslie Shortteeth.
Yeah, anybody that has a comment that they want to pop in there in the chat or in the comment section, then let us know, because we can talk about traumas and triggers all day, because we were talking about the key characteristics, I guess, of trauma response not too long ago in one of the circles that I run, and intense emotional distress is one of the big things that come up.
Fight or flight,
or freeze. Like, I know people who will stop dead in their tracks when they see a snake or a spider or something that they're really scared of. They won't fight it and they won't run from it. They'll just freeze. Like, they don't know what to do. And, it's feelings of fear, anxiety, helplessness. And then we have guilt and shame based around that. So we don't like to talk about it a whole lot either. And then physical symptoms, nightmares. You can have flashbacks. I have those a lot from having, very traumatic abusive relationships. And like, I did this the other day. Like, I pulled up, and I was in an abusive relationship where I was, really told what to do a whole lot. And so I don't like to be told what to do, but it's also very psychosomatic and everything too. Like, it would make me sick and things like that. But here's one of the things that I would do is, because we had argued about one time that he got in the car one time and I forgot to move the seat all the way back. Like, how dare I be so ungrateful and thoughtless to not think that and think I'm the only person that drives this car. And we got into this huge argument because all I did was not push the seat back after I got done driving. So after that, to avoid that, every time I stopped that car and got out of the car to go into the house, I would move the seat all the way back, even though I am 5'2". I did not need it for a 6'4" person. And now it's such a response that every now and then it'll still trigger into my head. And I parked at the office, and as soon as I was about to get out, I scooted the seat all the way back. And that's been almost 2 decades ago that relationship happened. And so, but flashbacks, intrusive thoughts. We talk about this a lot with kids these days because this is kind of a trend. What would happen if I just drove off the road right now? But have you ever been laying underneath a ceiling fan and think, I wonder what would happen if that, because they sometimes get crazy, like, what would happen if that just came crashing down on me? Those are little intrusive thoughts. And then also, they can get heavier than that too, but we'll keep it light. Difficulty concentrating whenever you're at work, or, you've had to reread a paragraph 4 or 5, 6 times because you can't comprehend what you just read. And of course, the normal changing in sleep and changes in appetite. Sometimes you're really hungry for no reason, or you don't want to eat. And sleep patterns. You feel vulnerable in situations where you should feel safe. Threatened by situations that you wouldn't normally be threatened by. So a lot of times these are just trauma responses too. Coping mechanisms, that's why we went into our addictions most of the time, because I wanted to mask all that pain or numb all of that pain. And this was a trigger the other day. I had a solid injury. And The only thing that I felt like was going to fix it was what I used to use to fix it, and that was prescription meds, right? The painkillers. And that's what my brain goes to immediately because ibuprofen wasn't working and Tylenol wasn't working. And those are my only two drugs of choice now. Where my previous drugs of choice were all of the heavy pain medications that I could get, muscle relaxers and all of the different things. And so, um, but it would trigger me into all of that. So it, I don't see any new comments. So I'm just waiting. I'm just rambling right now. So do you have anything that you want to add in there that maybe you had happen or anything you know of?
Um, I guess I'm about the same way. Like they always say, hindsight is 20/20.
Mhm,
It isn't until after it's already happened that maybe I have that awareness.
mhm,
Like we did a mental check in. Was it yesterday? We did a mental health check in,
mhm,
and it made me realize a lot of the things that like because I've already been through this eye thing by being shot in the eye, and losing my vision in that eye, and like all my worst fears came true, with that, and I found a way to deal with it, and it's always through humor,
coping mechanism, right?
yeah, definitely, like even in my own family, like they never pass up on the chance to tell a one-eyed joke, and it's okay, because I always want to hear the new ones. It's the old ones I get tired of. But it actually makes it like enjoyable. But I remember a time where I was so like very insecure about how I looked because my whole life, I have hazel eyes. They change all kinds of different crazy colors. And that's what everybody knew me as. All the girls in my town, older girls, like my aunts, my older cousins, the older girls in high school, like they would all come and like hold my face and be like, look at his eyes. You know what I mean? Like you have the prettiest eyes ever, like yada yada yada, right? So then I get shot in the eye,
Mm,
and then it's like, okay, that's what I was like known for. So like now it's like a negative.
mhm.
No, I don't. Then I got to explain myself over and over and over and over and over.
'Cause it shot your pretty.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It showed my pretty. Yeah,
You know
but
what's crazy is our I mean, like, our word for jealousy is stabbed in the heart. Like, when you stab something in the heart, that's our word for jealousy, and so, like, that literally is the feeling that you feel when you're jealous, like, you've been stabbed in the heart, but in that was something that you knew that everybody liked, and then when it was taken from you,
hmm
you felt like that was the only attributing factor that
yeah,
everybody liked you, right?
yeah.
And, Daniel Given said, "This is weird. Barry isn't the only one doing all the talking."
I know, right?
Stongo Rossi.
How you doing,
I
brother
mean,
Ross?
Niake Rossi. Whatever side you are today. I just don't go to your harjo side. Yeah, lasting impact, PTSD. I have PTSD from abusive relationships, and a lot of that stuff and depression and anxiety and but definitely our self-worth and our value a lot of times it's attributed to the things that
Physical.
people compliment you
Yeah, the
on the
physical.
physical. And I remember getting this. Listen, I used to be kind of thin, and then I got to be a kind of a big
What?
mama, right? And so, but for the longest
Hell
time,
yeah.
I remember I remember hearing something really offensive when I was younger that people would mean it as a compliment. But I remember I have several beautiful cousins who are big mamas, right? And they would say, "Oh, well, she's pretty for a big girl." Like, what does that even mean? Like, she's just
Yeah,
pretty.
either you're
Why
pretty or
would
you're not.
yeah, why would you say for a big girl? Like, she's pretty. And so I remember when I started gaining weight, I would hear that in my head, like, I wonder if I'm pretty for a big girl. you know? And so, because it was stuck in my head that that's how people see you is based on your physical appearance first. Most of the time, that's pretty much par for course, right? When we see somebody, the first thing that we do, like even food, we eat with our eyes before we even taste it or smell it. And so, like, we will see that looks good. And if something doesn't look good, then I don't think it tastes good.
Hmm.
You're dumb. What are you smiling for? You're real dumb, huh?
You know where I'm gonna go with this? Yeah.
We're not going. So, but yeah, I mean, and so definitely physical. That went away, the larger I got and the more weight I gained and everything. But then, of course, that's also self-esteem issues that all of us deal with. I don't care who you talk to that says, "Oh, I'm fine with the way I am." There's something about them physically that they don't like, that they would change. I know people with curly hair that wish they had straight hair, and I know people that have straight hair that wish they had curly hair. And so we always covet what we don't have, and that's just human nature. But yeah, definitely physical. Those are all little things that we deal with on a daily basis for self-esteem and self-awareness, and all the little traumas that we don't even think about every day. Like, there's a reason why I know people that won't leave the house without makeup on, and they're beautiful without makeup. They don't need it. But I can believe that, but until she believes that or he believes that for themselves, what's missing in their life? Where have they been traumatized? What can we help to fix and maybe reinforce or re-empower that person to understand their beauty does not lie just within their physical appearance? Because I know a lot of really pretty people who are ugly inside, and it's a good thing they're pretty because it's got to mask all that ugly, right? And so, and to me, that makes somebody that's physically appealing or pretty, it makes them ugly to me. And like, we were talking about fry bread the other day, and I was cooking fry bread for the speaker night, and I was talking to Legend, who was in there helping me in the kitchen. Thank you, by the way, Legend, if you're watching. Um, but there were a few ugly fry breads that came out, right? And so she ate one, and she was like, "I'm gonna eat one of the ugly ones, whatever." And so she was like, "Oh, it's still good." And I was like, that's a lesson that my grandma taught me when I was growing up, because I remember, my fry bread wasn't pretty like hers was. And she would say in the language, pretty doesn't always mean good. And she said, and that goes for people too, men and women. Pretty doesn't always mean good. And that was a nice lesson for me to remember, because that's the first thing that I think of now. Like, if somebody's really pretty, or, or like, I wonder how pretty they are here. But, food too, you take it for granted. It doesn't always have to be pretty to be good. It doesn't. So, anyway, good afternoon, Charlene.
Good afternoon, Charlene.
Courtney, we want a Muskogee lesson session. I actually teach language in my community twice a month whenever I can make it down there. I'm not the only teacher. There's a panel of elders, but I mean, between me, you, and Barry, we're probably the only Muskogee speakers in this area. Hey, Misty. Misty. Hey,
Misty
y'all.
Hickson.
Y'all.
How you doing, Miss Hickson?
But yeah, I can talk about trauma all day, though. Good
Yeah,
afternoon,
Trauma
Julia.
Trauma Tuesday. How you doing, Julia
Trauma
Hall?
Tuesday.
So, what do you all feel like is like a suitable, because there's a lot of traumas that get too deep, but I mean, I think a common one that I feel like happens a lot is, you know, uh, I, I dealt with a lot of people with anger issues growing up, and like the other day, yesterday for lunch, I laid down on the couch and like, and I don't know what it was, but I hear Carmelo talking. And but in my dream, he was like being mean to me. You know what I mean? Like yeah, I don't know what it was. I don't know. In my dream, he was like snatching stuff out of my hand, and you know what I mean. Like I remember like in my dream though, I'm like I told him
Mad about it.
Like, do that again. You know what I mean?
I
Like,
wish you would. Dad.
yeah, do that again. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Buck
And
up.
I woke up and because he came, I heard him walk through the office and he sat down in his chair and he's like, all right, it's time to get up. And so, like, that made me like, like,
Raw.
like, boy, boy.
Say with your chest next
Yeah.
time.
But after I sat there for a little while and, I sat right up and then we did the, Mental Health Monday. But it was funny to me once I started, going reflecting on my day and thinking like I'm so glad, like I have that awareness. Because back in the day, I would have actually been mad at him.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Carried it for a long time with those resentments, right? And
so
get those inventories.
I'm so glad like I have that awareness today. And for a long time I didn't. I've been beat up plenty of times, and I'll take an L. I will take a butt whooping real
Oh
quick.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I'll make somebody crash out.
Hey,
Yeah.
I always say, you know what? You might beat my ass, but it ain't gonna be no easy win, right? Like I'm about to fight until the death, and that used to be how my anger was. And I mean, I've been through 2 bouts of anger management since I was 15, and like all of the therapy. Thank God, y'all. You guys offer that therapy, the talk space therapy, and everything too, because for this community, that I think it's so important to be worried about your mental health and the way that you do it, but also Wellbriety, the options for the mending broken hearts on Monday, the mending Mondays and stuff like that. Sometimes, we associate grief and trauma and mending broken hearts and Wellbriety with just substance use and addictions, and it is absolutely not. Everybody can be codependent without addictions, other addictions, but like getting a hold of your grief and trauma, and doing a trauma timeline. I mean, the first time I ever did mine, I remember some of that stuff that I wrote on my timeline, I didn't even like to let well up in my own head, much less speak it into fruition and make it a reality. And whenever I did and wrote that stuff down, not only did we were we able to kind of purge some of that feelings and let that pain go, and let go of some of that toxicity, but it was very cathartic to be able to say, this is why I do this. Like it was the answers that I needed, and they were all stuck here and here. And so definitely Dave said, dang Mello, let him make it. Tatum said, you guys matching each other's energy is making my day. We talk like this every day.
Yeah, like laying there.
They're just talking smack to each other. But yeah, and I mean, and reflecting over the end of the day, like how was I negative today, right? Because that used to be my go-to. And you say this all the time. Sometimes, the situation can be the worst thing that's ever happened to you, and then the best thing that's ever happened to you without the situation even changing. And I listen to that and take heed to that a lot too, because I'll have a bad day. Like earlier, I had a meeting that really made me upset. And I was so upset. And after that, that's usually where I would have to go blow off that steam. Let me go to the casino and hit the bar, or let me go drink alone, or let me just take my medicine and go to sleep, because maybe I just need to go to sleep. I would take whatever I could to numb that pain or that anxiety or that feeling that I didn't want to feel because I was uncomfortable. And if it wasn't for me being so self-aware with that work and working the steps and doing the trauma timelines and resentment inventories and all of the things that we do, um, it's really, I think everybody could benefit from it, not just people who identify as being in an addiction or in recovery, because I always say this, I think we're all recovering from something. Daniel, for real, just nonstop. I have to talk real fast because I won't be able to talk if I don't, if
That
I
was
just
just a
let him
yes.
talk.
It was a yes or no question. And that was
Listen.
just a yes.
Listen, who asked me to be on here today? I can
Ooh.
always, Darian, you can get back over here.
Well, I'm Barry Bochan. I'm part of this talk show too. So.
This is my show.
That's introduction.
Okay, now that we know
Was
who
it
you are.
Darian?
Yeah.
Was it Darian that said that I was the female Barry Botone, or was that Carmelo? I can't remember. Somebody was. I was like, I don't know what that means. Eh?
Me neither. But I feel like another easy topic when we talk about trauma is codependency.
Oh, definitely.
I mean,
All over it.
you know, you may not. I mean, do you even like? And I'm asking the audience because I mean, we all know what it is. But you know, have you really ever looked into codependency? You know, because there's not a lot of research done about it. And you know, I'd say for about the past 10 years, it's actually became like the awareness of it is growing and growing and growing. And as you get into recovery, you start to realize like, wow, like one of the first things that a person who's in recovery, the first thing that they want to do is they want to get into a relationship because they're like, I'm living such a good life. I'm making such good choices. Let me go test my boundaries by seeing how good somebody else needs to you know, they need to see what I'm seeing. They need to
Yes.
feel what I'm feeling. You know, I need to share this with somebody
Mhm.
because it makes me feel better.
Mhm.
And you know, there's so many codependent tendencies that start to creep out, you know,
And we all have them.
yeah.
Everybody has a tendency. It's how far you push it. Like, it's one thing to be nice, and share your love, and share, food, and and be nice to people, but when that is the only thing that makes you happy, is the happiness of someone
Mhm.
else, because you can't be happy by yourself.
Yeah.
That's what causes codependent relationships. And in recovery and in working the steps, in AA or anything that you really do, a lot of times what they push you to do is, if you're in recovery, don't get into a brand new relationship for a
Yeah.
year. Like,
The love of your life isn't in rehab.
yeah, not. And I mean, I know there's been a lot of people that have gone to rehab and come back and they're still together. Thank God.
Yeah.
Uh, yes, continue to prove me wrong, but there's so many people that have proven us right,
Yeah.
that you don't do that in
I
your
would say
first,
98%.
because that's the time that you need to be selfish in yourself, is be by yourself to take care of your recovery in that first year, to see if you can do it without, because codependency, we think that it's got to be somebody else that makes us happy, you know on one side, but the other side, on the codependent side, is where we do everything for our children. We do everything, and we end up making it worse for them later, because, well, my mom always did it for me, or my dad always took care of my fights if I got into something, right? So whenever we talk about codependency, it's those fixers. If you're the one that everybody calls in your family because they know you're going to be the one that fixes this, then you're probably codependent.
Very codependent.
And your family is codependent because they know you're going to take care of them because they can't take care of it. So, and if you just little triggers like that, but I definitely, I mean, if you read the not the meditations, but the Red Road to Wellbriety, the red book, for White Bison, there is a section in codependency, and I
Yes.
should have these pages memorized by now, but I have it bookmarked. And I'll open it up and look at it and go, "Yep, that was me today." And, codependency really kind of goes hand in hand with any addiction, but also without
Yeah, it's an
addiction
addiction in
in
itself.
and of itself. Absolutely. Like, if I rely on somebody
For
else's
my
feelings to
yeah.
make me happy, or determines my happiness, then that's a codependent relationship. I saw something on Facebook the other day, and I'm going to lightly quote it because I don't remember exactly how it was, but it said, if you wait for your significant other to smile at something, and then you've done something right, then that's a codependent relationship, right? If they're upset, and then and you're scared, then that's a codependent relationship. I mean, there's just a whole lot of things, and that's not even just husband and wife, boyfriend and girlfriend, 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 boyfriend, boyfriend. That is children. Like, if you're scared of how your kids are going to react because of something, or if you're scared how your dad's going to react to something, then there's something going on here. Somebody's not sharing, And so there's a lot of little things that can dig into that codependency, that I encourage everybody that listens to this to go check and see. Take one of those little tests, a quiz, and see if you're codependent. Am I a codependent? Probably. Danelle Joe says, Danelle, Joe says, I'm from Window Rock, Arizona, but live in OKC sober. It's 734 days from
Wow.
Holy, that is worthy of an applause right there. Absolutely. One day.
Thank
I
you.
don't know how to push those buttons. No, because it's loud.
Go ahead. Let one rip. Let one rip.
Really?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
No. No, it was definitely worth an
yeah. Lulu.
applause. No, because I know it's
Lulu, go,
loud.
go,
No,
go,
no, 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 no. Cassie B says agreed. Show it for yourself before you can start to show it for anybody else.
Self care.
Absolutely. We talked about this in the when you're on a plane. You know, the first person you have to take care of if that plane goes crashing, it doesn't matter if you have a newborn baby in your arms, you have to put a mask on first before you can save that baby, right? And so Charlene says, the trauma timeline answered my questions too. I didn't realize how negative my own self talk had affected the actions I took in my own life. Sometimes even the positive actions stem from a negative self image. It's a constant, conscious effort sometimes.
Thank you for sharing that.
Almost always. Thank you very much for that, Shirley. And Dr. Mann talked the other day about us being, we know this, that we are comprised of, predominantly water, and water is life, right? We have to have water to live. But also there's a study, and we'll look it up, and I can't remember how you spell his last name, but it's Dr. Emoto, and he does a study on water. And whenever he put water in a vessel, and then they would speak on it and say really nice things to it, and they would look at the crystals of the water, and they would be beautiful, like snowflakes, beautiful, and they would say negative things to the water, and then they would look at the water molecules under a microscope, and they would be dirty and nasty and cloudy. And and a lot of this kind of made sense to me, because like at ceremony, medicine, a lot of our medicines are herbal, medicines, they're in water, and they have to pray over them and speak over them to turn them into something that's going to help us, right? And that makes perfect sense to me as to the way that self-talk bothers us, because the way we talk to ourselves is just shameful sometimes. Like would I want my daughter to talk to herself that way? No, never. But she does. And where did she learn it from? Dave said, speaking of easy, where's Randy Nolene?
Check on Fig. Check on Fig. Check on Figaro in LA.
And Randy said, yeah, this guy.
Oh, there he is. Must be taking a break.
Taking a break.
Glad
He's,
you
he's in the bathroom. Yeah, in the bathroom.
Some downtime.
Hitting
Glad
the
you
hot
could
spot.
tune in. Yeah, glad you could tune in, brother. Those are my bros. Randy lives in Santa Ana, California, right by Modern Day. If you don't know what Modern Day is, and I really can't help you, but they're like one of the top high school football teams in the nation every year. So Modern Day is kind of like a big deal in football. So he lives like 2 blocks from there. So I can't remember the name of the road, but yeah, that's California. California stuff.
Cassie said, my cousin had a parrot who would tell my niece, I'm getting fat, because she would say that to herself in the mirror. I mean, and that's how we model for our kids. We talked about this once before, but one day we had Alani, Barry's granddaughter, and we were in Walmart, and she was getting a little baby, because we get her a baby every time. And she was carrying it. It's a tiny baby, right? But she was going like this. She was going, oh, so heavy. Oh, so heavy. And I was like, she heard that somewhere.
Yeah.
Well, her sister, slash first cousin, Barry's other daughters, his other granddaughter, giant, the cutest Cabbage Patch baby in the world, like
Yeah.
overstuffed Cabbage Patch doll, right? And she's the cutest, heaviest, solid baby. And and they're always carrying her, and I'm sure that they were probably saying it about Nova, like, oh my God, you're so heavy, and I was like, she learned that from somewhere though, right? So yeah, absolutely, we model it. We don't realize we're modeling for everyone else, but the things that we say to ourselves, somebody's listening to us, and somebody is validating our words, even if we're just joking. And sometimes we validate them ourselves, even if we're just joking.
I joke a lot.
Yeah, and I'm real bad about my self-talk, my own self-talk, but it's always in a joking way, and I believe that sometimes there's a little bit of leeway because we are native, and that's how we cope,
Mhm.
is with
It's
that
coping
humor.
skills.
And like the more uncomfortable I get, a lot of times the more inappropriate the humor gets. especially like if we're at like funerals.
Conference.
For
Yeah.
example, conferences, whenever I'm speaking in front of everybody, speaking of, I will be the MC at our tribal public health conference.
Oh no.
They knew what they were doing, so hopefully they knew what they were doing. But anyway, um, but yeah, that Randy said Bristol.
Yeah. Bristol. Duh. I was thinking Crystal. I don't know why. Bristol, but I put a C on it. Yeah.
Because you
Bristol.
hood like that.
Bristol. Bristol.
Are we banging
Bristol.
right now?
And y'all made me forget what I was gonna say.
Bristol and Crystal.
No. I was thinking of the. Well, anyways,
This is what
thinking
he
of where
does to
modern day
y'all,
was
huh? Cuts off everybody and messes them up. Misty said, "Cut."
at.
Edinger.
Edinger, yes.
Edinger.
Oh my God, how did I forget that? This would be my hood. There's a badass taco place right
Used
there
to
on the
be
corner.
my hood.
And then there's a Jack in the Box right there that you can go use your food stamp card to go get a meal.
What?
Yeah,
I wish I got food stamps.
me
I mean,
too.
I don't because that
trauma
means
too.
I'm gonna go. But it
Yeah.
is trauma. Food sovereignty. That used to be the only way that I knew that I could get.
You know, I seen a commercial last night that said 1 in 4 Oklahoma kids suffer from hunger.
Yes,
1 in 5 kids across the nation. So
that's another thing. Remember that one day you were like, "How come you always ask me if I, like if I wanted more food, then I would get some more." And I was like, "It's a trauma response." Because I remember eating at tables when I was still hungry, and all I got was just a little bit, and I knew I was still hungry. So I always told myself that no one was going to starve at my table, right? And so even if it's gravy and rice or, biscuits and gravy or whatever,
biscuits are smack.
then I'm going to make sure you ate enough when you left my table. And I will always tell everybody, go eat some more if there's plenty because I remember being hungry. Yeah, covering your boat. You need 4 pillows. But that's also a trauma, right? That's why I ask you.
Let's get beat up for getting seconds all the time.
Well, and I grew up
I
in
didn't have give nobody else a chance.
I grew up in a house with a lot of grandkids. All of us lived in, there were grandma and grandpa, all my aunts and uncles and their kids, and living in rooms. There were probably 5 families living in that house. And so when we would eat, we got enough to eat, but I mean, we couldn't cry and say we were starving, but we were definitely still hungry. And the big piece of chicken got to go to grandpa, and we might get a wing, and if you didn't get a wing, you got to eat more gravy, and that was a filler. And so I remember being hungry. And I remember being in a situation where my kids were probably hungry too, and we were rationed based on the food that we had. We are an ingredient household, refrigerator household. Does that make sense to you? Like that kind of went around on social media not too long ago. Do you have an ingredient household, or I can't remember the alternative is, but that meant you didn't just open the refrigerator and get out whatever you wanted to, because that might have been for dinner, like a pack of hot dogs. You can't just make a cold hot dog sandwich, which I love.
God.
Listen, quit it. But you can't just open it up and say I'm gonna fix me an egg sandwich, because that might have been for breakfast for the next 2 weeks, 2 days or 4 days. So you couldn't just open it up and reach in and get something. Everything was going to be for a later dinner. And so we didn't have options if you were hungry. We got to drink all the water we want to, though.
For sure.
All the water we wanted to.
What
Cassie said, yes, we are the same fridge.
are we having for dinner tonight?
I don't know. I'll figure something out. If I got to be magic and figure it out, I'll do it.
No, we need chicken fried steak.
How do you say this name? Mnim. Hey y'all, it's Mary.
It's Mary. That
Wet tomorrow. I don't know how to say it though. Is it
it's
like
just Mary Nicole Yellowman.
I
MNYM.
know that? You looked at me like I should know it all.
Mary Nicole
She's
Yellow.
asking,
Oh,
sweat tomorrow.
I haven't gotten any word yet.
He's about to give out your social too. Hey,
I haven't heard. Usually there
Tony size.
So, if it usually rains within a few days before, they usually put it on hold. So I think we only sweat like once within like the past month. maybe twice. But yeah, I think because of the weather, it rained again today. So I mean, usually that means that the wood's gonna be wet, uh, by tomorrow. So
I don't know though.
I haven't heard. But if I hear anything, I will let you know, sister. So it's funny y'all trying to say that name, but I mean, I just know who
I
it
mean,
is.
you know how you read things in your head and think, "Oh, I kind of know how to say this to myself," and then you try to say it out loud, and
How
you're
would
like,
you say
"Wait,
that?
manim,
Minimum.
manim."
Got any minimums?
You know, I want minimums.
Um, my microphone just fell down to my chest.
What about you, man behind the camera? What are some traumas that you've experienced? And we know you've been in deployment, so is there anything? Here's the thing I was going to ask you is a lot of times, listen, they don't want to hear us talk all day. Um, and I was just telling somebody at my work about this, the comment that I made to you the other day, because we're all going through all of the traumas with the government, and a lot of times tribal politics, kind of kicks in. But I was like, I need to be more like Darian and be like, you know what, I don't care because I've been in life or death situations, right? To where this is minute compared to, me not getting shot at. Yeah, just vibing, just ride the wave. And so we all experience trauma differently, and things that I would think were going to be the end of the world traumas, you don't really see that because you've been in life or death situations. But
Um, I mean, even in those life or death situations, we do see humor. So the easy one is our first big rocket attack when we were in Iraq. We had uh, well, it was a military force that was going against us, and so they launched 30 107 millimeter rockets at us from a truck, and so they all came, but they blew up our armory, so our armory got on fire. So then for about 2 hours straight, we're dodging bullets and mortars that are our own. but so we're just chilling in this bunker.
same team, eh?
Yeah. So we're just like, well, we're just gonna hang out, and so they're going down the list of like you're naming everybody to make sure everybody's accounted for, and so they get to John, and they're like, has anybody seen Hot John? Because like everybody had a nickname. And
What was yours?
mine was D Money because I. But like this is what the humor came is because they were like Hot John or Hot John Boy because I always know where Hot John Boy is, and so like even in these serious moments,
Uh-huh.
you can find that humor bond with all these people, and so we're just like busting
Vibing.
laughing. And anytime we were laughing, we were inhaling more of this smoke, coughing, and it was a disaster. And then my other favorite moment in that same dodging bullets and stuff. There's a guy that's walking through the bunker with a flashlight, and it's on the ground, and you see it snap right back to somebody's shoes because they were wearing Crocs. And then he's like, "Are your Crocs in 4-wheel drive right now? What are you doing?" And then the guy's like, "I had to run." He's like, "Never put him in 4-wheel drive." And so you just have these little moments that crack people up because that's all you got sometimes. It's just
Sometimes.
humor is all you have. Because I mean, we were just waiting for one of the mortars to blow through our bunker, a rocket go through our bunker, because we had 100 mortars in there, a bunch of 50 cal rounds, 9 mil, 5.56, all sorts of stuff, and they're just flinging everywhere like 20 feet away, 30 feet away, and we just have this cement barrier between us because we can't go anywhere else because that's where they were. But humor is definitely the coping skill. Um,
Definitely.
Well, thank you,
Definitely.
D
Thank you
Money.
for that, D Money. And we tend to hyperfixate on one emotion, right? Usually, like everything's bad. It's all bad. Nothing's ever going to go right again because this is all the be all end all. And then sometimes, the humor is great, but there's also a balance because you can hyperfixate on that and like become the person that can't take anything serious and nobody wants to tell them because they're going to make fun whenever you're having a serious moment, right? Right? Hey, I'm just waiting. Like, everybody raise their hand. And but there's a good fine balance, and and it's all about timing sometimes. But yeah, that humor definitely carries us a long way. I mean, I hear stories of, the removal um from, all of our different homelands to Oklahoma. And our humor has carried us a long way. My grandpa talked about stories that his relatives and the people that walked the trails and were fighting in the swamps of Florida, and would talk about stories that they would have about hiding from all of these people that were coming and infiltrating, and I mean, and and stealing women and children, and pillaging and plummeting, all of these things, but they still carried that humor and they could talk about it. And it's definitely a sign of resilience. It's definitely a sign of resilience in our people, and not just our people, but just people in general. So it's always really nice to fall back on that. And I'm sad for people that can't find the humor in things.
Yeah, they would have no fun around me at all.
Daniel said, "Oh, your cousin Flo came to the singing last month. She came with her friend. Oh, nice. Yeah, that's my baby. That's my baby girl." Man, okay. Well, I mean, I can literally sit here and talk about this all day
Literally.
because this is my job. This is what I do. So, but anyway, we've been on here for 56 minutes.
Yeah, it's time to go.
You've talked the entire time.
Yeah. Very easy.
Oh, Drew said Barry splitting my head open was traumatic experience. He ruined my Ninja Turtles sweater.
One time, my dad got me, or somebody got me, kung fu pajamas. You know what I mean? The kung fu set. You know, the
Underoos.
white. You know, I look like Karate Kid, and I told my brother, "Hold this bear." You know, it's like a big old bear. Somebody won at the fair or something, and I was like, "Hold it!" I was like, "Watch this!" I just kick him right in the face. Bah!
We were trying to be real cute little rugged Indian girls and have a pillow fight one time, but real cute little tradition Indian girls, if they have nightmares, they carry something sharp underneath their heads and usually in the pillows. So it could be a knife, it could be scissors, it could be anything. And one time we had a pillow fight, and her cousin was going through just bashing everybody with their pillow. We all ended up with the gash because she had scissors in her pillow. So I have a scar on my eyebrow because of that. And so I was like, dang, rugged, we're just too tradish.
I remember splitting Drew's head open though. I was doing a WWF move,
Mm.
but we didn't have money. We didn't have a car to take him to the ER. Definitely didn't have no resources. My mom worked the night shift. I think she worked a double that night. So we weren't. She left at 3 that evening, and we weren't going to see her until 7 o'clock the next morning. So I threw Drew down. He hits his head on the bed, and all my grandma could do was tie his hair.
Real tight.
She tied his hair, and he had on the Shemp helmet, the bow haircut. So
I've been super glued.
it worked
shit
out
before,
great.
and like
So-
I remember one time I was walking around outside, and my grandma used to always say, if you're gonna go outside, make sure you put your shoes on, and if you get cut or hurt or whatever, I don't want to hear it. Basically in the language. And so anyway, she would always say, "Manaktiya dudundo." That means that's what you wanted. And so anyway, I remember coming in and I had stepped on a big old piece of glass and cut the bottom of my foot. And that's the first thing she said was, "Manaktiya dudundo." That's what you wanted. You should have put shoes on. Like, you brought it on yourself. But I just remember we didn't go anywhere. I didn't go get fancy stitches in the bottom of my foot. It was gashed open, bleeding everywhere. And she got a bowl of sugar and she got a big old scoop and started pouring sugar on it until it clotted up. Like it was a big old pile of blood sugar, and it clotted it up and it stopped. And I never went to the ER or the doctor. And we didn't even live that far away from the ER.
Manaksia Dondo.
Just down the road. Manakya didondo. Or she would say, Timbonado is like, I told you. Timbone, Timbone, naklobejichigo. I tell you and I tell you, and you don't listen. She would say that all the time. And that's the reason I know those phrases so well, is because I heard them all the time. Anyway, but yeah, 59 minutes and 27 seconds.
All right. Well,
Final.
thank you everybody for tuning in. We appreciate all the comments. Sorry if we didn't get to say all of them.
I did.
Trying to get Natalie to get off.
Shut up.
To give me a turn. So,
Eee.
we appreciate you coming on. I'm very thankful. I'm very grateful and appreciative that you were able to share this time with us. And I can't wait for dinner tonight.
Thanks.
So
We'll figure something out.
chicken fried steak. Okay. So yeah, we will see you tomorrow. And I believe that's it. I hope